Making an accurate inference, an essential skill for success in college. What is an inference? An inference is a conclusion made from the facts in the reading. It is not directly stated, but the reader cannot find the exact answer to the question in the reading, but must read between the lines. Good readers can refer to the contextual evidence in the reading. Prior knowledge of the topic is often necessary to make an accurate inference. Here's a simple example. I am looking out the window. I see a car wrapped around a tree, glass on the ground, and an injured driver. I ask the question, what happened? The evidence is I have a car up against a tree, I have glass on the ground, someone has an injury, so my answer is there was an accident. But the simple story never stated there was an accident. I couldn't put my finger on the answer to the question. The reader or listener must infer this from the evidence given or the details given to us. But what if you came from a remote, undeveloped area with few cars or no cars at all? You would have no prior knowledge of what an accident was, and the details that inference are based on would be meaningless. So, prior knowledge plays a big role in making an inference. And it's very similar to understanding a joke. Jokes are based on your experience and your prior knowledge. When someone says, I don't get it, it's because they don't have that background knowledge. To get it, you must read between the lines. Let's look at a reading from a communication textbook. The messages communicated by the eyes vary depending on the duration, direction, and quality of the eye behavior. For example, in every culture there are strict though unstated rules for the proper duration for eye contact. In our culture, the average length of gaze is 2.95 seconds. The average length of mutual gaze, two persons gazing at each other, is 1.18 seconds. When eye contact falls short of this amount, you may think the person is uninterested, shy, or preoccupied. When the appropriate amount of time is exceeded, you might perceive the person as showing unusually high interest. The direction of the eye also communicates. In much of the United States, you're expected to glance alternatively at the other person's face, then away, then again at the face. The rule for the public speaker is to scan the entire audience, not focusing for too long or ignoring any one area of the audience. Okay, so first thing we have to do before we attempt to answer any inference questions is to make sure that we have the central ideas down on what this reading is about, know what our major details are. So we want to begin with annotating the passage and selectively underlining. So we can see that the very first sentence is the central point. The messages communicated by the eyes vary depending on the duration, direction, and quality of eye behavior. So we have a stated main idea, major details that are indicated in our selective underlining. In every culture, there are strict though unstated rules. Duration. Our culture is 2.95 seconds. A mutual gaze, 1.18 seconds. When it falls short, people think you're uninterested, shy, or preoccupied. When the time is exceeded, they think you're very interested. And then we have direction is another major detail, and that you're expected to glance alternatively at the other person's face, then away, then again at the face. And for a public speaker, it's important to scan the entire audience. Okay, so now let's take a look at these inference questions. True or false? A good strategy for a politician giving a campaign speech would be to focus on 2 or 3 people in the audience. True or false? Okay, let's give that a moment's thought. And our answer would be false. Okay, and let's go back to the reading and see what contextual evidence we have for that choice. First of all, you would need to have some prior knowledge of what a politician is. If you didn't know what the word politician meant, then you would not be able to answer this question. If you didn't know what a campaign speech was, you would not be able to answer that question. Okay, so we'll assume everyone knows that a politician is someone running for a political office. Okay, and the rule for the public speaker is to scan the entire audience, not focusing for too long or ignoring any one area of the audience. So we know that a politician is a type of public speaker, and we're told that you should not focus for too long and ignore an area of the audience. So that would make our statement false because it said that you would look at 2 or 3 people. Okay, let's try another one. True or false? People in every culture follow unwritten rules regarding communication with the eyes. And our answer to this question would be true. And the contextual evidence, the reading states, for example, in every culture there are strict though unstated rules for the proper duration for eye contact. Okay, and the last one, true or false? In the United States, the direction of a person's gaze is expected to be constant. So you would need to know that the word constant means the same, consistent, to answer this question. And so knowing that, we would all agree that the answer is false. The contextual evidence is the direction of the eye also communicates. In much of the United States, you're expected to glance alternatively at the other person's face, then away, then again at the face. So this alternative glance back and forth is very different from looking at something constantly. So that would make that a false statement. Okay, let's go in your book, in Bridging the Gap, to page 343, and we're going to look at the sample passage in Chapter 7 on Inferences called Johnson in Action. And this passage asks you to rely not only on the details that the author gives, but your prior knowledge or schemata. So you need to know who Johnson is, and so it's important to know that Lyndon Johnson became president when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and that President Johnson hailed from the state of Texas, and he was known for wearing his cowboy hats. And John F. Kennedy was from Boston, Massachusetts, on the East Coast. Okay, let's take a look at the passage. Lyndon Johnson suffered from the inevitable comparison with his young and stylish predecessor. LBJ was acutely aware of his own lack of polish. He sought to surround himself with Kennedy advisors and insiders, hoping their style and sophistication would rub off on him. Johnson's assets were real, an intimate knowledge of Congress and an incredible energy and determination to succeed, and a fierce ego. When a young Marine officer tried to direct him to the proper helicopter, saying, "This one is yours," Johnson replied, "Son, they are all my helicopters." Okay, so we're going to stop for a minute. You see I have some words in bold and red highlighted. And that's because not understanding what they would mean would affect your understanding of the passage. So when something is inevitable, it's going to happen. You can't prevent it from happening. And I probably should have highlighted the word predecessor also. And your predecessor is the prefix pre, before. So a predecessor is someone who came before you. Lack of polish is lack of sophistication and experience. And when you want something to rub off on you, um, you want to just have that knowledge assimilated, almost like a sponge. You want that, what that person has, to become part of what you have. Okay, let's continue with the reading. LBJ's height and intensity gave him a powerful presence. He dominated any room he entered, and he delighted in using his physical powers of persuasion. One Texas politician explained why he had given in to Johnson. Lyndon got me by the lapels and put his face on top of mine, and he talked and talked and talked. I figured it was either getting drowned or joining. Okay, so I have in red here the word lapels, and of course, the lapels are part of a suit coat or blazer, and that would be the collar of that suit coat or blazer. And I'm going to ask you to think about that last sentence. It says, I figured it was either getting drowned or joining. So this person isn't literally being drowned. So see if next class you can tell me what that means, okay, being drowned. We'll talk about that some more then. All right, let's go on to our true or false questions. Find the support for each statement, true or false. Johnson was haunted by the style and sophistication of John F. Kennedy. And that answer would be true. And our evidence, our contextual clues, he was acutely aware of his own lack of polish. So you need to know lack of polish with sophistication. He sought to surround himself with Kennedy advisors and insiders, hoping their style and sophistication would rub off on him. Okay. All right. And the word haunted also is important in the question. If you're haunted by something, you are very bothered by it. It's on your mind all of the time. So you need to know what that word meant to answer the question. Okay, here's another one. True or false? Johnson could be both egotistical and arrogant about his presidential powers. So here we have our question, our statement. If we don't know what all the words in the question mean, how would we possibly be able to answer it? So if someone is egotistical, they have a big ego. They like to talk about themselves. They are very selfishly into themselves, narcissistic. And someone who is arrogant believes that their rights surpass everybody else's. Okay, they're very bold. All right, so what evidence do we have for that? What's the answer to that question? And that would clearly be true. We have the incident with the helicopter when Johnson says, son, they're all my helicopters, shows that he is very arrogant. Okay, and last one, true or false? Even if he did not mentally persuade people, Johnson could physically overwhelm them into agreement. And the answer to that question, would be true. LBJ's height and intensity gave him a powerful presence. He dominated any room he entered, and he delighted in using his physical powers of persuasion. So we see that word physical in there, that word dominate, intensity. Okay, all of those have nothing to do with mental persuasion. Okay, so for your next class meeting, I would like you to go into Bridging the Gap, and in the same section that that sample passage was in, page 344 to 345, if you could please complete exercise 7.14, 7.15, and 7.16, and be sure that you indicate how you chose that answer. So underline the contextual evidence that you have to support your choice of true or false. And bring your answers to the next class meeting. You can actually do the work right on the pages in the book, or you can do it on separate paper, but bring something in to turn in for the next class meeting. Okay, see you then.